heading up to the 2-hour mark with 22 hours to go. Looking at the number 22 DragonSpeed car in LMP2. Paul di Resta closing in on Jordan King for Jackie Chan DC Racing there in the black and yellow car, black and blue car, beg your pardon. Behind them, Andrea Pizzitola for Algarve Pro, the pale blue car, trying to hold off the high-class car of Matthias Besch. And Besch, the former Rebellion P1 driver, goes deep down the inside. He gets through, doesn't he? Yes, he does. So he makes that move stick. And the leader coming through, the number 7 Toyota, Mike Conway. So Conway continuing to extend his advantage, now 41 seconds over Sébastien Buemi. By the way, talking about the Aston Martin Pro team as well, while Louise was down there, they have sort of slumped away from being front runners and are now currently in 13th and 17th, or last, as it's otherwise known, in the GTE Pro class.
Pole position car, of course.
Exactly.
And, led the race earlier on, looked comfortable. And yeah, it's a bit unknown why they would have slipped off the pace like that.
Paul Howard said that they were trying to work out whether it was double stinting the tyres that was costing them so much longer into the run, and they're then going to have to work out a different strategy now to see if they can answer that particular question.
Cracking little battle, by the way, in LMP2. We're seeing the front end of it at the moment. This is Jordan King in the 37 Jackie Chan DC Racing car, holding off at the moment Paul di Resta in the United Autosports car, but then behind, having just taken the 8th position, Matthias Besch is charging on and trying to close down with the Labra car in between, trying to charge down the lead Ligier in the field, which is Paul di Resta in the 22. So this is a 3-car battle for 6th position in LMP2. And that
LMP2 number 50 Labra car, which is now being driven by Romano Ricci. He's taken over from Nick Bull. That's producing as much speed as the car behind, so it makes it very difficult for the number 20 to get by. Eventually he does, takes a dive down the inside. So the 20 car moves up. That's the ORECA chassis for high-class racing. And high-class, another team that has graduated from European Le Mans Series, cut their teeth there over 2 or 3 years. And in the Konica Minolta number 37 car, that is Jackie Chan DC Racing's Jordan King, 6th place in LMP2 at the moment. Teammate Stéphane Richelmy is in 5th position in the class in 38. And we heard yesterday in the ACO's press conference, the WEC field next year will feature again 2 cars from bearing numbers 37 and 38. 37 will be Jackie Chan DC Racing, but for the first time at the world level, Jota Sport, which actually run both the cars for Jackie Chan DC Racing, will enter the 38 car under their own banner. So Jota Sport will be the 38 car. 37 you're looking at now, that will remain a Jackie Chan DC Racing car. What livery it carries, we will wait and see at Silverstone in September, the beginning of season 8 of the FIA World Endurance Championship. Pit stop for Nicolas Jamin at the tail of the LMP2 field, and Duquesne Engineering gone unseen by us, but he has now made the 4th stop for that car, so he's back on the same number of routine stops as everybody else in his class, but had a puncture as well. 98 Aston Martin leaving the garage with Pedro Lamy. We heard from Paul Howard saying that they were going to make changes as a precaution because Pedro had reported an issue in the way that the car felt. And Peter, when you're doing the sorts of speeds here that you do, for as long as you're doing them, you've got to be super cautious about anything the driver reports as being an issue.
Yeah, I mean, Pedro's, you know, one of the most experienced drivers out there, and if he's reported a problem that isn't just tyre wear, that isn't just vibration from tyre rubber pickup or whatever, then yeah, he's going to report that back, and they have to do something about it. There's no point in risking it.
Well, the driver trusts the team implicitly. You have to when you're leaving the pit lane to do the sort of speeds you are. And we talked about this again, is the mechanics have to be absolutely guaranteed in their own minds that they've got it right before they let the driver go off and do 180 miles an hour down the straight.
Well, AMR are a well-drilled team, a lot of resources and a lot of experience in that team. Winners 2 years ago with the 97 car, so you know, they know what it takes to win round here, and you know, they also have a battle on their hands in their pro category as well to bring Sorensen and Alex Lynn back onto the pace and back up the grid a bit.
Matthias Lauda in the 98 Aston, last running car, behind Satoshi Hoshino in the 88 car. And Ben Hanley is the third last car, but the DragonSpeed number 10 P1 car has now left the pits. So hopefully they have fixed whatever ailed the car in terms of overfueling. As ever, it won't be a leaky gasket in a carburetor, because things like that don't exist anymore. It'll be the electronics playing up. Welcome to the booth. And thank you for the cup of tea, Alan McNish.
Hello. Looks like this is quite an intense race so far, as the Porsche just runs a little bit wide. Patrick Peely into the Dunlop chicane, goes in a bit deep, crosses the aero wake from behind the Corvette. But the Corvettes have came out the blocks fighting. You know, they look really good at the start.
Good to see.
Got good straight line speed as well. But I think, you know, you look down through to have been focusing on that particular part of the battle for the last few laps. You know, the top 8 in GTE Pro are covered by 16 seconds. So I think all of the different marks are in the mix as well.
In fact, there's only 2 gaps in GTE Pro that are bigger than 2 seconds between the cars.
Tell you, a gap that's much less than 2 seconds is a battle for the lead in LMP2, though, because now Jean-Eric Vergne has caught right up in the back of Nicolas Lapierre. And since the last pit stop, he's been 1.5 seconds a lap faster than Lapierre. And they're on different tyres here. Lapierre's on the Michelin and Vergne's on the Dunlops. And so I'm not sure on the tyre strategy whether they actually changed tyres for Vergne or not.
Now, I did hear a couple of people suggesting that the hotter the weather, the more likely it was to help Michelin, and the cooler the weather, the more likely it was to place the strengths of the Dunlop. And actually, I'm glad you pointed that out, because we haven't seen him on screen for a while. And Lapierre was in a little league of his own. He was 8 or 10 seconds ahead before the last round of pit stops. So Jean-Eric Vergne, a man who is in a real purple patch in the last 12, 18 months, is really doing a great job. The United Autosports car, Paul di Resta, goes by the 88 Dempsey Proton GTE AM car. And through comes the high-class machine of Matthias Besch.
Slightly held up there, just had to correct his line and back out. It's always better to be a little bit cautious in that situation and not take any big risks this early in the race.
Racing Team Netherlands, by the way, we didn't document, up to third after the last round of pit stops in LMP2. Nick de Vries ahead of Roberto Gonzalez. So driver change in both those cars. Lapierre's been in the lead from the start for Signatech Alpine. And Vergne started for Vergne took over in the G-Drive car, didn't he? I'm not sure that he's...
Vergne took over the G-Drive car.
So quickly up to speed for Vergne. Vergne's hit a real purple patch of his career at the moment. Formula E champion, running well.
Beat the Audis.
Oh, sorry, I've just been punched by Alan, and I've just realised why I've been punched by Alan. Something to do with an Audi, or I don't know.
On board with a 93 Porsche. Again, you know, the TV director, our friend who does all of these races, Olivier, is there just trying to follow every one of these battles. And Magnussen starting to creep away from Patrick Peely. Trying to identify what part of France Patrick Peely's accent is. That didn't sound remotely French, did it? I'm not sure that was the 93 car, so
whatever car it was, he had understeer.
Well, it wasn't Michael Christensen or Richard Leitz or... What Porsche's got an English driver? No. Sven... Well, it's not Nick Tandy in the 93, unless that's very delayed, because he handed over to Patrick Peely at the last pit stop. So either that or Patrick Peely has become very, very, very English quite recently, or very British. Anyway, Patrick Peely in second place, as he's saying, power understeer. And that's not really excellent here. There's not too many places where you've got long acceleration corners, but here you do, particularly down the hill. Jan Magnussen is pulling away, gaps out over 2 seconds now. It was not even a car length. Jonathan Bomarito in third place in the 67 Ford, and Alan McNish, as the stints have got longer, the Ford has kind of started strong, gone away, come back again. We still don't really know what the balance of power is, do we? We don't know who's got the best car right now.
No, we don't. And also the circuit's changing, it's rubbering in quite a lot as we're on board with that 67 with Bomarito at the wheel, looking back towards the Porsche behind him, which is Michael Christensen at the wheel, and then right behind that is Leeds, the other second Porsche, with the Ferrari right behind it of Sam Bird. The thing is, I think they're so closely matched, but they produce their performances at different points of the races. We've got Bird now off the circuit on the inside, coming down into the first chicane. In fact, Bird has now taken the place away from, sorry, it was Collado from Leeds.
That's the world champion, James Collado. There is Sam Bird, and Sam Bird has got Dirk Muller in the 68 car behind. He is doing a really good job. So, interesting information, the only car on double stinting tyres, Jonathan Bomarito took over, he'll have had fresh rubber. Pile took over, he'll have had fresh rubber. Magnussen took over, he'll have had fresh rubber. And here we go, looking in the inside of the Ferrari, the Porsche trying to come back at James Collado. So, last year's world champions in manufacturers and drivers, Collado and teammate Alessandro Puerguidi in the 51 and the Ferrari team. This year's world champions, Porsche, and one of those two Gold Bandit Porsches will have the World Championship driving team in it as well at the end of this race.
Yeah, looking at this race itself at the moment, though, in the Corvettes up ahead, it is actually that 63 leading Corvette, which has got Jan Magnussen at the wheel. Looking at the averages over the stint so far, and you were talking about the tyres and their degradation, they're basically about 2-3 tenths quicker every lap over a stint. Now, I think they make their stint times up at the beginning, because Magnussen's half a second quicker than anybody right now. However, later on, I think it's a Ford that does come back to them. So the Ford is kinder on the tyres. Now, the GTE cars, they've got 60 tyres or 15 sets available for the whole race. So they do have to conserve them later on. And they'll do that when more rubber goes down onto the circuit.
Well, they're double stinting them now, new driver, new tyre, and you don't do a single stint in these cars. And then, presumably, in case it gets down to nip and tuck at the end, they'll try and triple stint if they think they can produce the performance at the end of the race. 31, that's the Roberto Gonzalez car, just ahead of Stefan Richelme. So the Mexican in the red highlights car, just ahead of the black and yellow Jackie Chan DC Racing of Monaco's Stefan Richelme. This is a battle for fourth in LMP2. There are the Jota Sport Jackie Chan DC Racing boys. And right ahead of them, United Auto, right ahead of them rather, is the DragonSpeed car. DragonSpeed with an LMP1 car, the number 10 car in the Gulf livery. And with their LMP2 car under pressure now.
Yeah, but Richelme's been in for much longer in this. He started, sorry, Hoping Tung started that car, and then Richelme's got in, so Richelme's up to speed. Whereas for Gonzalez, he's just got into the car after Anthony Davidson. So Richelme certainly knows how the circuit's evolving, and you look at it there, quite a big difference in the pit stop times.
Yeah, 34 seconds more spent at rest in 3 stops by the number 31 car than by the number 37 car, 38 car. So if you do that and extrapolate it out to 25 or pit stops during the race, then suddenly that's an amount of pace that you're never going to find.
Yeah, but that's a huge amount to lose in the pit stops. Yeah. I think that's probably related to 1 or 2 pit stops as opposed to every single one. Certainly for DragonSpeed, I hope that's the case. Knowing that team, considering they won the Daytona 24 hours, and they've also been winners in the ELMS races so far, then I think that we've got to say they're a top team. Yeah. And so it'd be a surprise if it was just basically bad stops.
Absolutely agreed. Black and white flags for Alex Lynn in the 97 Aston and for Matt Griffin in the 67 AM class Ferrari for abusing track limits. Jamie Campbell-Walter, when you're in the middle of a battle, although you know you're supposed to stay on the grey stuff, it is sometimes kind of hard, isn't it? You're in the wash behind another car, you are on the debris and on the dirt, but you've got to avoid getting that penalty.
Yeah, and I think they've probably done it 3 or 4 times already. Black and white flag means a warning. If they do it again, it will be a penalty. So probably on the exit of Tête Rouge is the place that we're seeing Most of them go offline. Yeah, it's a silly penalty to get. You don't want to get these silly little drive-throughs and stop and goes for the gain is minimal compared to the loss.
And of course, we're seeing it on our timing screen. It's on the TV screen, but in the driver's data screen in the cockpit. Oh, and the Rebellion spins and just avoids the barriers. In the driver's cockpit, it will also tell him track limits, turn 7, or wherever it happens to be, so there's no excuses.
That was track limits, definitely by the Rebellion coming out of the S's there. I didn't see the beginning of that, but I very much presume he got up onto the curb on the outside, which either you basically drag down the barrier on the left-hand side, or alternatively, if you try and bring the car back onto the circuit with the belly of the car on the curb, it can spit you right. Signatech Alpine flashing the headlights, and you could see the LMP2 leader. There's the number 10 DragonSpeed car, and that Gulf Racing car is working its way back up the order from stone last after being in the garage with an over-fueling issue or over-fuel consumption. There's G-Drive 36 on the left-hand side. That's the leader in LMP2. G-Drive is the orange and black car. That's second in LMP2. The gap was down to 0.2. It's out to 2.3 seconds. But Alan McNish, a lot of that may just be the way that they have fallen upon the traffic. Yeah, but I think it's also the fact that the freshness of the tyre from the Dunlop is maybe not quite there any longer. And but it's quite clear that the Signatech car is pulling away again. Not much, I have to say. 2.3 seconds can ebb and flow very, very quickly. Number 10 DragonSpeed car being reported to have a front light out again. They've been spotted by the police, so that must be repaired not immediately, but at the next pit stop before they go back out. And car 17 has to repair the front lights. That's SMP. Well, Louise Beckett, you reported earlier about the 17 SMP racing car.
Yeah, when I spoke to them earlier, we saw that they changed the nose, and they said there was no problem at all. It was, I quote, racing secret, so I don't know what that means, or if it just meant the lights weren't working.
Well, whatever was wrong with it before, the new nose doesn't have working lights, or doesn't any longer have working lights. Thing here is that, you know, part of it is the Ferrari just cuts across the chicane. Yeah. That was Sam Bird there, came into it and basically aborted the corner completely. The thing is that you hit so many of the curbs here, and the curb exit at Tête Rouge, you get massive vertical frequency vibrations, and you know, electrics are sensitive at the best of times, never mind racing car electrics, and so they can quite easily come from running on the curbs too long when you don't need to, and that's part of the experience of basically the design team of that car, but also of the drivers as well. But it's kind of one of the basics. You've got to have lights on a car in a 24-hour race. Yeah. It's mandatory. Even though it's daylight, it is still mandatory. ARC Bratislava LMP2 car. That was the one that Sam Bird worried that suddenly the door was going to be slammed on his nose and he was going to be punted off. And Jamie, when you've got a car that you've not raced against before, and that car has not been part of the WEC season, and suddenly he has a bit of a meander into the Dunlop curve, you throw out the anchors and you just get out of the way, right? Yeah, it's you've got mutual respect between all the drivers, but it is trickier when you don't know the driver particularly well. So when the new guys come in, a bit like for the Corvette boys as well, but they all raced together at Sebring earlier on in the season, so it's not too much of a problem really. We've talked a lot about. Sorry, go ahead. 1 second. Really? You've got mutual respect for the people you were driving against, Jamie? I knew that was coming. I raced against you. I didn't see much of that mutual respect coming across. Well, it depended on the situation, of course. Not towards a fellow Scot, obviously. Then it's that's clan is the only thing that counts there. With the 91 car, we talked about the 7 and 8 Toyota battling for the championship, but so too are these guys. The 91 and the 92 Porsche team both know that one of them will be drivers' champions, as Porsche are now manufacturers' champions. So that's a really tough battle. I always say, if you can't beat your teammate, you're never going to win anything. But you know, you've got 3 teammates to beat and 2 other guys on your side. For the team to manage the balance between them, look how close this is. That's not easy, right? No, this really is a great battle from
P4 in GT Pro all the way down to P7. It's what, 9 tenths, 4 tenths, 3 tenths. Here they all are, and close racing. And let's not forget, they're having to contend with these LMP1 cars coming by them as well.
Can I only just say is that now with my racing driver's helmet off and my team boss's hat on, this is your worst nightmare. You've got your two cars that are fighting like hell against each other without any thought or consideration for the bigger picture, because that's what they're paid to do.
Now here's a chance for the 92 car, 91 car rather, just gets his nose in front as he follows that multicolored Rebellion through. The 92 had to move off the line, ideal line, and the 91 car whoosh straight through. Thank you very much. And it's turns of the card like that that you can't manufacture that can offer you an advantage. You've got to be aware.
Very true, but at the same time, he didn't fight it very much as his teammate came down the inside. That's the one clear rule you have in a team, is that, yeah, you're allowed to fight your teammate, you're allowed to race your teammate, but you don't compromise them in the same way you probably would if it was someone else. But right now, just looking at this particular battle, they're actually catching very slowly and slightly, not on this last lap with traffic, but Pili and Magnussen up ahead. Bomarito, who's his first time here at Le Mans in that Ford number 67, which is the lead car in this particular train, he's really getting to grips with it now. His averages have been very good, with, well, quicker than the people behind, and just a snick behind the car directly ahead being Pili.
Yeah, lead two are a little way clear, Magnussen and Pile, as you say, but Jonathan Bomarito just keeping himself out of trouble. He's tantalizingly close to the Ferrari of James Collado, who's fourth, and then you've got the two Porsches leaks ahead of us as we ride with Christensen. Oh, wow! Now, Christensen had just got by this Settilar Villorba Corsa car in traffic. Now he's come back past him on the quicker part of the straight, and Sam Bird was right there in the Ferrari as well, looking to go by. Back with United Autosports. This is their 32 car, Ryan Cullen, versus the 43 for RLRM Sports, and another rookie and the first Indian driver here at Le Mans for a couple of years.
Yeah, Ryan Cullen, when they switched over from Alex Brundle, we heard Alex Brundle had a problem with the support around about the steering column, the comfort support, and that had to be replugged in. So they had quite a slow stop, but lost about 10-11 seconds as they were relocating that. But Cullen back into his stride, but he's got a bit of a fight on his hands now by Mania, that's for sure.
Yeah, Arjun Maini chasing him down for RLRM Sport. This is the 38 Jackie Chan DC racing car, in from what was fourth in the class. Fifth in the class, rather. Top five yet to stop, and that's following a sequence that's happened all the way through. Top 5 or 6 in LMP2, stopping a lap later, and that's probably because they stopped a lap later on the very first stop. So Rebellion also in with the number 3 car, as you see. There's been a driver change at SMP Racing. Vitaly Petrov in the 11 car has handed over to Stoffel Van Dorn. Van Dorn having his first race stint here at Le Mans.
He's done a good job, actually, hasn't he?
Hasn't he, though? Nat Berton, driver change at Rebellion. He's taken over the number 3 car. And Mike Conway and Sébastien Buemi still out front for Toyota GAZOO Racing.
And he's saying about Van Dorn doing a good job. I see him in the other weeks in another category, and I tell you, he's doing a good job there. But then again, considering what he did in all of his junior series when he won in everything, and got points in his first ever Grand Prix in Bahrain, substituting for, I think, Jenson Button at the time, in what was an uncompetitive McLaren. And I think we can say he's got enough talent in his pockets.
I think he was unfairly removed from Formula One, to be honest, because he was one of these kids that won everything all the way through the single-seater ranks and completely dominated more or less every championship he did. So good to see him in a leading car and given the opportunity, as well as Formula E, obviously.
LMP2 leaders are in. Signatech Alpine. Nicolas Lapierre has been in since the start. Does he get out? The door does not open. Not the driver's door. And Jean-Eric Vergne is in behind him as well. Third place, Jordan King for Jackie Chan DC Racing, the 37 car, yet to stop.
4 seconds was the gap between the leading 2 LMP2 cars when they popped into the pits.
One's having a driver change, one not.
Yeah, Job van Uyter getting into the 26 car. So the Dutchman, his first race at Le Mans. And he has been absolutely blown away by the week so far. He came back from the drivers' parade. I probably shouldn't tell this, but he came back from the drivers' parade so emotional with being overwrought by the whole thing. Actually, he had a little sit down and a teary moment to himself. Can I actually be getting ready to race at Le Mans? Well,
crikey, if he stands on the podium, what's it going to be like?
Oh, yeah, well, there'll be a lot of Dutchmen who are struggling. He raced, of course, in the European Le Mans Series last year. That's when we first came across him, and he raced his first season and won the LMP3 championship, and now up into LMP2.
And Bomarito has been overtaken by Collado. We said that so the Ferrari has got through past the Ford as the #1's in the pits.
Yeah,
and Bruno Senna, remember we saw him having a spin, and Andre Lotter's been strapped in at the same time. The reason they go into the actual box itself, the pit box itself, is because then they're unlimited on the number of people that can work on the car. But it'd be good to know what was going on with that #1.
Another black and white flag for car 49, Tkachenko. Again at Tête Rouge, a few drivers getting black and white flags now.
As the 37 runs out, Jordan King at the wheel of that Jackie Chan DC Racing, 4th place overall in LMP2. And he now runs out, drops to 5th as Gonzalez has gone past on the circuit. And so now King back on his way. Interesting though, Jim Rollers joined us here back again for stint #2 after being refreshed, physio and everything else. But looking up ahead at the lead as we watch Jordan King coming through the S's, Conway and Buemi. Conway pulled away massively at the beginning of the race, but in the last 2 stints, Buemi's matched him toe for toe within 1/10 of a second per lap and stabilized that gap at 40 seconds.
And that's what they've got to do. They've got to just keep them in sight. That's all they've got to do.
Keeping them honest.
Keep them honest. They don't have to catch them. They just got to keep them honest.
Do you think there's a sort of the hair at the front of the field, go for it, guys, and #8 are sort of going, we just got to get to the end?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a risk assessment, but that would be all the way through the race. You know, in that respect, it was a bit bizarre because it was 2 seconds. Conway was quicker through the first stint, 2 seconds per lap. I watched from outside here at the Ford chicane where we are as the one comes back out after quick pit stop, something to do with the rear of the car. Andre Lotter in. Oh, stalls.
There it goes.
Right.
Louise says they put a new nose on.
Yeah. Maybe Louise, if she can have a little check with Bart Hayden there, whether there was anything at the rear as well. So Lapierre, LMP2 class leader, gets caught behind the Corvette. That's a Pile. Magnussen's in that one, and then Pile is directly behind in the Porsche.
When you were racing with the Corvettes, did you always find they were quite defensive if you were about to overtake them in a place that they didn't want you to overtake?
I've got to be honest, I think they were. I would say the majority of the time they were quite strong in their position, and you have to understand they're racing as now the 2nd place Buemi car is into the pits. Driver change to Fernando Alonso, new tyres goes on. Fueling still going on, but I think they were defensive, but they did it in a clean and consistent manner, so you knew, don't mess with me. And the other thing is, you've got to remember, and this is, you know this better than me in reality, they're doing their own race.
Yes.
And you know, it's fine doing your own race in an LMP1. Fernando Alonso is just about to do it, where you're only overtaking cars. If you are overtaking and having to look in your mirrors, then that's doing 2 things at once, and racing drivers are not always the best at multitasking.
And as a prototype driver, isn't it better to have, even if they're going to be strong and defend their position to a certain point, to have them be consistent and know they're not going to do anything silly?
Yeah, Jim, I was always a big fan of consistency in that you knew what you were up against, and you could build up that mental picture of what it was going to be like. The worst thing with the closing speed of maybe 60 or 70 miles per hour, 100k quicker than the car ahead, if the car then ahead decides to change tact, you can't get out of it. You know, you can't change direction. You're waiting for the impact.
one clever thing the Corvette, I think, was the first GT car to have was a mirror system.
The rear view camera.
The rear view camera, which actually gave the position, because at night time when the LMP1 car is behind you, you can't actually tell with the bright lights where they're going to go.
Right.
So what they have is this camera system inside the car, and it actually gives like arrows and the distance that the car is behind. So they have really good information
radar,
to their available to them.
And it is radar control. Black and white flag for the number 91, Richard Lietz in the Porsche in 4th position.
He's
and
just taken 4th position off Jonathan Bomarito there in the Ford.
Track limits. Maybe he used the little extra track to get by. There's the Project 1 car in the AM category being overtaken by the number 93. Patrick Pilet in 2nd place.
7/10 down.
So
on
we've got
the
a couple
Corvette.
of IMSA cars at the front here. Jan Magnussen in the 63 Corvette and Patrick Pilet in the Brumos Tribute liveried Porsche.
Brumos Tribute livery, you know, the Grand Marshal here, Hurley Haywood, who started his career with the founder of Brumos in 1967. I interviewed Hurley last night at the official dinner, telling his story. And he's a 3-time winner of this race and 5-time winner of Daytona 24 Hours. So you can certainly say an endurance legend.
Pit stop for the number 7, Mike Conway coming in after 3 stints. He's out. And that's going to be Kobayashi getting in, Cleaning the windshield, all standard stuff. Let's go down to Louise, who's got Bart Hayden.
Bart, we've seen the number 1 come in. We've seen I heard there has been a vibration reported. So what have the team done? Sorry.
So early on we had a puncture with Bruno. We saw it, so we slowed him down to come back so that the tyre didn't actually let go properly. That obviously lost us a lap or so. And then he's in the middle of his 3rd stint on this new set of tyres, and the left rear started to feel a bit odd on him. So he came in, and when we got in, the wheel nut seemed to be a little bit loose, which is really odd after 25 laps. So we've put a new set on, new wheel nut, tightened it up and sent it. Could be okay.
Thank you.
It's a little bit concerning because I've lost the Le Mans 24 Hours with a wheel coming off after a significant period of time, and it was locked and torqued up, and then, you know, you didn't, but, you know, he spun coming out of the S's, if we remember, and that was Bruno Senna at the wheel at that time, looped it coming out of the S's. We saw the big black marks there in the previous camera shot, and I'm just not sure whether the whole thing is related. If it is, then it's not going to solve itself. It's only going to get worse. And then if it does, then usually it's a rear quarter suspension upright change to ensure that you get rid of the hub.
Good battle now at the front of LMP2, the 36 Signatech car. Nicolas Lapierre is, what has he got? About 7/10 of an advantage over the number 26 Urus G-Drive. Van Oder behind the wheel of that car. So that battle is hotting up. That's 6th overall. On the screen right now is our 5th place car. That's the SMP number 17 working his way through the traffic. That's the 32 United Autosports car. Cullen behind the wheel of that car. Graf car back in the pits. The number 39 car. That was originally our pole sitter until they ran afoul of the officials because they didn't stop at the weighbridge.
We saw Fernando earlier on talking to his engineers on the pit wall, sort of going, why is my car 2 seconds off the pace? So it'll be interesting now. 44 seconds is the gap between Kobayashi and Alonso. Be very interesting to see how Fernando gets on and deals with that. I think he's got a championship to win, but ultimately he wants to win this race.
Yeah, he would like to have a double here as opposed to just 1 victory and a championship. It will be interesting to see. That team, of course, 1-2 at Fuji, and he wasn't very happy about that.
close battle still in Pro, only 1.3 seconds between Jan Magnussen in the Corvette and Pilet in the Porsche. Some 14 seconds back is the next battle, which is about 5 cars all battling it out.
All within, you know, 8 tenths, 7 tenths, 2 tenths, just right there, nose to tail, as we said they would be all day. Kobayashi on his outlap. Fernando Alonso will be on his outlap shortly. Stoffel Van Dorn we just saw in the number 11 car. It'll be interesting to see how he goes, given his experience.
Yeah, well, I think pretty well in terms of speed. He's very inexperienced when it comes to Le Mans endurance racing. He's very experienced, even although he's young years in overall. But Orojev has been blooming quick, I've got to say, in this car around here. He was, remember, Wednesday, Thursday night, he was throwing it around to the point where you shut your eyes, hoping that he was coming out the Porsche curves. He was hanging on that much. And the SMP is a quick car. I wouldn't say it's maybe the most comfortable to drive, but he's sort of muscling the car around. As there we have got Van Dorn into the second chicane and accelerating out, but it's only 5.4 seconds behind his Orojev in the sister car.
Interesting to see if they can sustain that level of throwing it around, if you like you say.
The muscles like Popeye, I think, to do that.
Yeah, you want a comfortable car to drive. To be able to attack the circuit, you need to be secure within that. But these guys that, like Alan said, throwing it around the other night, when you have a different mindset for qualifying, obviously you are willing to sort of take a few extra risks. But it'd be interesting to see, because these guys are all quite young, and you know they've got to, if the car's tricky to drive, they've got to sustain that level of concentration for 2, 3, 4 stints maybe, and that's where you suddenly start to see in stint 3 and 4 mistakes coming.
Yeah, and all the physio and nutrition and water and everything else at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you've been working that hard all night. You're going to be prone to mistakes, aren't you?
Yeah, it is, and it's also the mental fatigue of the concentration, and that's the thing where, you know, Jamie knows as well as I do that it's the mental concentration, mental fatigue, where an easy car allows you to maybe run at 96%, not 100%.
10-second time penalty now added to the pit stops for the 26, the 60, and the 93 for not respecting full course caution procedures. So that's our second place car in LMP2, the G Drive, and it is the second place car in GTE Pro, the Porsche with Patrick Pilet behind the wheel, and the 60, which is one of the Kessel Racing cars with the Pianziola behind the wheel of that car.
It's frustration more than anything else, I would say, from the team's perspective. The 10 seconds in both of those gap, position, it will stay in second for the G-Drive racing car, the LMP2, which is just the one came into shot at the back here. We're looking at the leader popping through with Nicolas Lapierre at the wheel, and he'll still stay in second with that 10-second stop penalty added to the next pit stop. So he comes in, he'll stop for 10 seconds, then they can go to work on the car.
Is that a better way to do it, or you let them do the work and then hold them like they would in the United States?
Well, we like to do everything the opposite of what you do in the United States, Jim, so that's why we do it the other way around. I don't think it really matters. It means that you're frustrated in the car sitting for 10 seconds.
Either way.
Yeah. I had a 1-minute penalty once in Sebring, and I can tell you that felt like about 1 hour when you're sitting there. But Job van Uitert here in the car, young driver, 20 years old, but he's been very good in the tests at the end of last season, tested for this team and also for another, came through the LMP Road to Le Mans series, and he's been, I would say, one of the new revelations, a new star of the future.
And Louise has caught up with Mike Conway, who's turned that Toyota over to Kobayashi.
Mike Conway has come back in the number 7, and you put in such a good performance. Those first 5 minutes, you've got such ahead of everybody else.
Thanks. Yeah, just car felt good, so I could push and build a gap. I saw at the start the Rebellions and the SMPs got around Seb, and I was just glad I had a bit of a buffer to stay away from that. But yeah, he got through it, and yeah, just kept pushing and able to increase the gap. Yeah, happy with that, really. But let's as we know, long day ahead of us, but yeah, nice to have a good buffer that we have already. I'm surprised.
Were Toyota surprised by the competitiveness of the Rebellions at the start?
I think we knew they were going to do that. You know, we have bigger fuel cuts, and their top speed's very strong. You know, the S&P as well. So yeah, we expected them to be close, and if they stuck with us in sector 1, we knew we'd possibly get past into turn 8. So yeah, I was lucky I had a gap. I just got a clean first sector and managed to maintain it.
And feeling good out there?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, just the sun was coming out here and there, and now it's fully out, so it was nice to see that. And yeah, now I'll be in the dark next time out, so yeah, looking forward to that.
All right, thank you.
While Louise was talking to Mike Conway, we got to see Constantine Tkachenko take a wild ride in the ARC Gravia. Strava car. Coming out of the second chicane, all 4 wheels off the ground. There's your 93 car. Yep, in the pits. So he'll be serving the penalty here.
Hasn't done it so far, but they went straight in with the fuel.
Maybe they'll do it afterwards.
Kobayashi's stretched the lead out on Fernando Alonso to 49 seconds now. Kobayashi slightly eking away a 3-second difference in lap time on this particular lap.
That's got to be traffic.
Yeah, 49.5 seconds now. Remember, Fernando was 42 seconds behind when he started the stint. So looks to be still not super happy with the number 8 car.
No, looking at the top speed on that particular lap there, though, there was 10, 11 kilometers per hour quickers for Kobayashi, so I think there's a little bit of a toe effect on that one. Quick in the middle sector as now Pilet's back out onto the circuit.
And he's definitely served his penalty. A 1 minute 17-second pit stop dropped him down to 7th position behind the Aston Martin of Sorensen, number 95.
There's Bomarito in the 67 Ford. Sitting now in 3rd place. He's 21 seconds off the lead of Magnussen, so he had a bit of a head of steam at the beginning of the stint, but he's kind of struggled a little bit, or they've dropped back certainly in comparison to the Corvette. But I will have to be honest, I think the Corvette is the speed of the field at the moment.
Do you think that the Ford is using up its tires a little bit quicker?
No, I don't think so.
No, the Ford was coming on strong at the end of the stints, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's.
But you know, I think it ebbs and flows a little bit through here. Here we've got a. Oh my goodness! Oh, whoa! Hold on! Oh, 69, big spin, big spin. That's Richard Westbrook at the wheel, goes to the inside. Thought the car was going to give him the space, it didn't.
Thomas Fleur at the wheel of the Spirit of Race car, slightly squeezed him at the apex, probably didn't see him. And Westy was taking avoiding action.
Yeah, lost 6 seconds only in that first sector, so a pretty good recovery, but I'm sure it's going to be I would say, a teeth-rattling ride through the rest of the stint with the slightly flat-spotted tyres. Full course yellow is coming up in now. Oh. Don't know what this is for, but the circuit is under full course yellow. Everybody down to 80 kilometers per hour. As the 20 LMP2 and Matthias Besch nearly hit the United Autosports LMP2 of Paul Di Resta up the backside as they both slowed down into Arnage.
That's happened a couple times today.
There
Looks like a debris pickup.
That's a bit of tyre, I think.
Yeah.
That is a lot of tyre, in fact.
Wow, that's a lot of debris.
Porsche curves.
What's happened here?
Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's a jumbo racing entry and lost the right rear. Yeah.
These tyres, when they go like that, they do a horrendous amount of damage now to the bodywork. The driver really has to go much slower than he thinks.
And Nick de Vries at the wheel of that one. As he's came through, we didn't see where he's picked up that puncture on the right rear. It's not the most loaded tyre because that is the left rear round here. However, saying that, it's still got quite a high load, especially if it is at high speed. So
especially in the Porsche curves, it's loaded on that.
It is, but I think this tyre, Jim, has probably failed earlier on, and it's just started to delaminate itself. So everybody basically the pause button as we've got some nice little slow-mo reactions and reflections in the pit lane.
Think.
For those of you asking, you see on that seat there was like a white mesh, and that just allows the airflow to come up through the back of the seat, which cools the back of the driver a little bit. It's actually quite refreshing for about 10 seconds until you're up to speed and you're up to sweat levels.
Mike, Jan Magnussen taking this opportunity while the full course caution is out to come into the pits.
Just for a top up.
Yeah, that was, could that be emergency service? Because
no, I don't think so. Let me just check when he was last in.
He wasn't on the fuel for very long at all.
Yeah,
no,
okay.
I think that's just a top up.
Okay.
Making use of topping up your tank whilst obviously all the other cars are only
going very slowly.
80 kilometers an hour. So
it's almost a free pit stop.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure. I said it that way because, frankly, I wasn't sure the pits were.
No, I think it actually is that emergency service. Here's Collado coming into the pits as well.
Because I think the pits are closed when there's a full course caution.
Let's see what they do here. Yeah, it is. It's a top up because they had done 14 laps on the stint, Jamie, both of the cars there. So this could be very fortunate for Bomarito, who's been able to stay out there, and he's popped himself up into second. Now it goes green.
Oh, worst time for that full course caution for the 63.
Pit entry is now open.
51.
Yeah, they leave the pit exit open under full course yellow, but the pit entry is actually closed unless you do require an emergency. An emergency is 1 tyre or 5 seconds worth of fuel, and then you have to come back in and fill again under full green.
Yep. That's unfortunate, isn't it? When, just the luck of the draw. You're on your last lap, you were coming in, and a full course yellow comes out.
Sometimes I think this has been a switch of position there because these were the... No, I apologise. Paul di Resta's actually pulled away from the car that Matthias Besch behind, and now he's battling with Stefan Riquelme in the 38 Jackie Chan DC Racing. ORECA up ahead of him. So that's ORECA versus Ligier battle there, and it's also Michelin versus Dunlop. Scotsman versus Monegasque.
Duncan Vincent is now taking over the pit mic, and he's moved to the number 93 pit to talk to Earl Bamber. Duncan, welcome to the show. And that was that 93 car is coming off a 10-second penalty.
Yeah, we've got Earl Bamber here. First of all, Earl, you're enjoying the race just now, looking at the timing screen, but the temperature's just suddenly gone right up. It's very warm outside now. The wind seems to have dropped. Is that anything you guys are going to take into consideration?
No, I mean, generally we've been a bit good, better in the warmer conditions, so it's suited us right now. We always knew it'd be a hot day. It's quite difficult at the moment to do the double stints as well for everybody, so there's a bit of a mix-up in tyre cycles. Now we're on our first double, so let's see how that goes.
When will we see you jumping into the car?
I go in next, so maybe 10, 11 laps.
Okay, have fun.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, thank you.
The TF Sport car there is going very slowly in the left-hand side, Jamie.
Yeah, didn't see why. I didn't see any puncture or anything.
It was coming down from Mulsanne through the kinks as we now ride on board with a Ford Porsche battle with a Ferrari behind. That's like 50 years ago in 1969 when the gap at the end of the race was 120 meters and 2 seconds. Jackie Ickx taking the victory for Ford GT40 over the Porsche, denying Porsche their first ever victory with Hans Hermann at the wheel.
We saw the 69 Ford GT
in the pre-race.
Jackie Ickx and Jackie Oliver, I think it was driving. Looking splendid in the Gulf livery.
That's beautiful, so sleek lines, everything else, but this Ford GT as well, I've got to say, does look nice.
It's fantastic. When you look now, you can see through the car. You know, it's phenomenal how it was designed. And
I would say there that the Porsche behind is trying to look through the car, look to see how he's going to get past that car. But the Ferrari now having a little sniff round the outside.
This is 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Sam Bird in the Ferrari, Richard Leitz in the Porsche, looking up ahead at Joey Hand in the Ford.
And coming up behind them is Oliver Gavin. Nope, Tommy Milner now in the number 64 car.
so the Ferrari's trying to sneak a toe off the Ford. Now the Porsche gets it. Now it's back to the Ferrari.
That's round the outside, and yeah.
Ooh, he got it done.
I know Sam Bird quite well, and he's never afraid of an overtaking opportunity.
So that's Indianapolis complete. Now we'll see if Leeds can get him back at Arnage. He cannot.
Coming up onto that TF Sport car that's still going slow in the Porsche curves. So they'll be trying to spot where they can get ahead of that car. And the Porsche curves, honestly, are probably the worst place you can come across a car going slowly, because the speed differential is so huge and it's very, very narrow there.
Scott Dixon going out the pit lane. I think that's Westy's car now.
Yes, that is.
Probably Westbrook had to pit because of those tyres from his spin.
Wow.
The Astons have fallen away, haven't they? Considering we had the 95 car was the pole position car in the class. It's now sitting down in 13th place with Sorensen at the wheel and Lynn in 16th.
Leeds got the middle section of the Porsche curves all wrong. Ended up with 4 wheels all the way off the racetrack and lost about a car length on to the Ferrari.
Say about, sorry, just coming back to Nicky Team, an average of 2 stints was 3 minutes 52.7. Sorensen's average on his last stint was a 3:54, 2 seconds slower than Team. And so I would say that most of it has come from there, but why? Don't know.
This battle is now spread out a little bit, but they're about to come up on the, looks like the car guys, Ferrari in front of them as they head onto the Mulsanne straightaway. That's a good spot to catch him. They can make work of him before they get to the first chicane. It never ceases to amaze me, those closing speeds. Was that the hardest part of dealing with the traffic, was the closing speeds?
And this is replay of Bomarito leaving. And the TF Sport car. Oh, whoa. TF Sport car coming in to the pits. It was the one that was running slowly on the circuit. Close call. The hardest part for me with the traffic was basically when you had cars that were on. So this point of the race was generally quite good because you had, I would say, more the leading, more experienced drivers in the car. When we got to local time, 7 o'clock at night, and then they were running through the less experienced drivers prior to getting to night time in darkness, then that's where you had to be careful, because they were 100% capacity, just basically getting up to speed with the circuit and not really necessarily totally globally aware of what was around and about.
30-second stop and go penalty now for the number 20 High Class Racing. Matthias Besch behind the wheel of that car, 7th place in the LMP2 category, and that 30-second stop and go will be for speeding under the full course yellow.
Yeah, we saw him. He was the driver that closed right up in Paul di Resta as they came locked up the rear and nearly hit di Resta in the back. And so possibly it came from that point. Here's the Ferrari popping back into the pits. This is Calado. Sorry, Pierre Guidi, apologies, in the 51. That now comes down to the speed lane limit line.
You just saw him throwing it into the last chicane there as he comes in. Of course, the pit lane speed limit doesn't start until the 60 board, and there's time to be gained there. You know, you can lose 1 or 2 seconds compared to your, and if it's every stop, it's something that they practice on the Wednesday and the Thursday to maximize everything.
It's going to add up to 63 with Jan Magnussen behind the wheel, is still out on the racetrack. He'll retake the lead here. Of course, it takes these GT cars 35 seconds to fuel. And so they are imperative to get driver changes, brake changes, tire changes, anything they're going to do to the car done in that 35 seconds as Magnussen goes by.
You see them,
and will retake the lead.
You see them cleaning everything. You can see on the windscreen there the little green tabs in the top right-hand corner. They're basically a tear-off, we call them. It's a film of plastic which they stick onto the windscreens, and every couple of hours or so they'll rip one off so that the drivers have a clear view.
So Magnussen back out front, still waiting for now Collado to driver change. He has come out, and he's also lost second position to Bomarito. So Jonathan Bomarito in the red and white number 67 Ford is second. Patrick Pile has taken over third, as Collado has dropped all the way to fourth with that pit stop.
Yeah. That 67 Ford has been up and down the order. Started second, looked like it was going to be leading at the end of the first lap, dropped down to fifth and sixth, back up to second, down to third, but it's hanging in the game. And it is, it's 12 seconds behind the lead car. Here's, we've got Magnussen breaking down into the first chicane, but 12 seconds behind, just probably coming out halfway down that straight from Tetra Rouge is Bomarito.
Looks like the front of that Corvette doesn't want to turn in.
Well, not the speed Jan's carrying into the corner, probably doesn't. I think if you were the front tires, you'd be screaming as well. I don't think that really bothers Jan Magnussen too much.
It doesn't.
There's the Toyota just coming past. It's that lead second place Toyota, Fernando Alonso at the wheel just behind. Magnussen coming through the second chicane. Fernando's dropped to over 1 minute behind Kobayashi. Kobayashi 63 seconds up the road, and in the last, well, 6-7 laps since the final pit stop, since both of these drivers took over, Kobayashi's been 1 second per lap faster.
Pit stop for the car number 67. That's the Ford that we've been talking about. Jonathan Bomarito is under investigation.
I presume that's, if it's under investigation, would be an unsafe release.
Yes, which is what we saw.
Yeah. But I think in that respect, it was a case of car being released, but not necessarily viewing that the T-Sport car was going to turn in across its nose towards its own pit box. Let's head down to Duncan, who's got Richard Westbrook.
Well, Richard, I didn't see it myself, the spin, but I heard Alan McNish making squeaky noises. It sounded like quite a big moment you had out there.
Yeah, I was making a few noises as well. Yeah, I just came into the kink and in turn one, and the Ferrari GTM obviously didn't see me, and I could see the door closing, and yeah, got on the brakes and lost the car, but managed to keep it out of the wall.
The car's been kind of yo-yoing up and down the top six. You know, it looked like you were going to lead the end of the first lap, but now you're dropping back down, and I think everything's okay. It's just GTE Pro. It's how it goes.
Yeah, we're all on different tyre strategies, so we changed tyres after the first stint because we wore them out, changed to a different compound, and now we're back in the mix. But we were going south for the first stint, that's for sure. But it's really tough out there. It's really dependent on the conditions. Tyres are super sensitive. You know, and you gain one stint and then you lose the other, you know, depending on where you are with the double stint on the tyres. So it's really difficult, you know, difficult to follow, to see who's got an advantage at the moment. Because when you put on new tyres, you go to the front. But when you're on the second stint of your tyres, you start falling back. So, and everyone's on a different strategy. So yeah, difficult times right now.
Did you notice that when you started your stint, there was a lot of cloud cover, and then towards the end of it, the sun came out? Did that affect the car?
No, not at all, actually. You know, you're in the trees a lot of the time, so, you know, there's plenty of cloud cover on the track there, so it's not really an issue.
Thanks for your time, buddy.
All right, cheers.
Interesting listening to Westy there. He's change of position there, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a change of position. This is fourth and third
Jordan
is
King.
Yeah, Jordan
Gonzalez.
King shoves his way past Gonzalez. That's a pretty aggressive move. Not unfair, but aggressive.
No. Westbrook was talking about they stopped at the first stop because they ran out of tyre, but he said he also changed compound.
Yep.
So different compounds can have different effects in the weather. It's more temperature related. I think maybe they split the strategies and they weren't happy with the car, so they've switched the compound, and now he seems a bit happier with it. Unfortunate about his spin. So it'd be interesting to see what happens to that car now.